front door opened at 4:47 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. I was in my home office reviewing quarterly reports for the trust accounts when I heard it. Not the usual enthusiastic slam and scattered shoes across the hardwood floor. Not the immediate shout of "Mom, I'm home" that typically echoed through our house. Just a quiet, careful click of the door closing, followed by an unsettling silence that made me look up from my laptop screen. Something was wrong. I found him in the hallway, frozen in place like he wasn't sure what to do next. 7 years old, still wearing the good clothes we'd picked out together that morning. The blue button-up shirt I'd ironed carefully and the khaki pants he'd complained were too uncomfortable but wore anyway because it was a special occasion. His face was red and blotchy, eyes puffy and swollen. He wasn't actively crying anymore, but the evidence of recent tears was clear on his cheeks. "Hey, buddy," I said softly, kneeling down. "What happened?" He looked at the floor. His small hands twisted together. "I don't want to talk about it." I waited. Years of being a single parent had taught me that patience works better than pressure. After a moment, he took a shaky breath. "Aunt Jessica said I couldn't come inside," he whispered. "She said the party was for real family only." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "Where were you?" "In the backyard." He made me stand by the window and watch. Everyone was eating cake and opening presents. Cousin Tyler got a new bike. They were all laughing. His voice cracked. I asked if I could have some cake, and Aunt Jessica said I should have brought my own food if I was hungry. I stood slowly processing this. My sister. My own sister had done this to my child. Did anyone else say anything? He nodded, tears starting fresh. Uncle Mark laughed. He said I should be grateful I got to watch. Grandma was there too. She didn't stop them. I pulled him into a hug. He buried his face in my shoulder and finally let it all out. Those deep, gasping sobs that break a parent's heart. I held him until the shaking stopped, stroking his hair, murmuring that everything would be okay. And it would be. Just not for them. After he calmed down, I made him hot chocolate and set him up with his favorite movie in the living room. Then I went to my office and closed the door. My laptop was already on. I pulled up the secure folder I rarely accessed, the one with the complex password and two-factor authentication. The folder containing all the trust documents our parents had established before their deaths 3 years ago in that car accident that changed everything for our family. Most of the family didn't know the actual details of how the trust worked. They assumed everything had been divided equally among the siblings. They assumed they all had direct access to their shares, that the money simply flowed into their accounts automatically each month. They assumed they were independent beneficiaries with full control over their inheritance. They assumed wrong. I opened the primary trust document, all 47 pages of carefully crafted legal language that my parents had spent months working on with their estate attorney. I scrolled to Section 7, subsection C, Distribution Authority and Trustee Powers. The section I'd memorized but rarely had to reference because I'd never needed to exercise the full extent of the authority it granted me. My parents had named me as the sole trustee with complete discretionary control over all distributions until each beneficiary reached age 45. Jessica was 38. Mark was 41. Neither had hit the threshold where they'd gained direct access to their trust principal. That was still 7 years away for Jessica, for Mark. The monthly distributions they'd been receiving, those came through my approval. The trust paid for Jessica's mortgage, Mark's car payments, their vacation home maintenance, even their children's private school tuition. All of it flowed through accounts I managed. I opened my email and started typing. No anger, no accusations. Just cold administrative efficiency. To Morrison Trust Administration. Subject: Distribution changes effective immediately. Please implement the following changes to monthly distributions. Jessica Morrison, suspend all payments indefinitely. Mark Morrison, suspend all payments indefinitely. Associated dependent distributions, suspend indefinitely. Reason: Trustee discretionary decision per Section 7C authority. I'll send the formal documentation by end of business Monday. I hit send at 5:03 p.m. My phone rang at 5:47 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. It was Jessica. "What the hell did you do? The trust administrator just called saying my payments are suspended. Call me back right now." 3 more calls came in the next hour. I ignored all of them. At 7:15 p.m., My son was in bed, finally sleeping peacefully. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "This is insane. You can't just cut us off. We have bills, contracts. Call me immediately." I typed back one line. "You should have thought about that before humiliating a 7-year-old child." My phone exploded. Texts, calls, voicemails. I turned off the sound and poured myself a glass of wine. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Jessica showed up at my door at 8:30 a.m. looking like she hadn't slept. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house. I closed the door calmly and followed her to the living room. She was pacing, agitated. "You can't do this. I have a mortgage, car payments. The kids' school tuition is due in 2 weeks." I sat down on the couch, coffee in hand. "I'm aware of your expenses. I approve them every month." "Then why would you cut everything off? Over what exactly?" "You made my son stand outside in your backyard and watch his cousin's birthday party through the window. You told a 7-year-old he wasn't real family. She had the decency to look uncomfortable." "That's not exactly what happened." "That's exactly what happened. He came home traumatized. He was being difficult. He showed up uninvited and we already had the seating arranged. I told him he could come to the next one." I set my coffee down carefully. "He's 7. You invited his cousin who he plays with every week. You sent invitations to every other family member, but not him. It was an oversight. No, it was deliberate cruelty. And then you made it worse by making him watch through the window instead of just sending him home." She shifted tactics, her voice softening. "Look, I'm sorry he got his feelings hurt. Kids are sensitive, but you're overreacting. You're going to destroy my financial stability over a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. You drew a line between real family and my son. So now you can experience what it's like to be excluded from family benefits." Her face flushed red. "This is about you being bitter that mom and dad made you trustee. You've always been controlling. I've approved every single one of your distribution requests for 3 years without question. Every mortgage payment, every car lease, every vacation expense. I never said no until you decided my child wasn't worthy of basic human decency. It was one party. It was my son. And you broke his heart." Jessica stood abruptly. "Mark and I are going to fight this. We'll take you to court." I picked up my coffee again. Section 7C gives me complete discretionary authority. 3 different law firms reviewed it when mom and dad set it up. You're welcome to waste money on lawyers, but the trust documents are ironclad. He stared at me, finally understanding. "You're really doing this?" "I really am." "For how long?" "Until I decide you've learned something." She left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Monday morning at 9 a.m., I received a call from the family attorney who handled my parents' estate. "I got a very angry call from your sister," he said. "She's demanding I override your authority as trustee." "Can you do that?" "No. Your parents were very specific. You have sole discretion until beneficiaries reach 45. I explained that to her, but she insisted I call you anyway. Thanks for letting me know. Off the record, your parents chose you for a reason. They trusted your judgment. After we hung up, I sent a formal memo to the trust administrator documenting the incident and my decision. Everything needed to be properly recorded. By Tuesday, my phone had 17 voicemails. Jessica, Mark, their spouses, even Mark's college buddy who apparently thought his opinion mattered. I deleted them without listening. Wednesday afternoon brought my grandmother to my doorstep. She let herself in with the spare key I'd given her years ago, back when I was a new single parent who needed family support nearby for emergencies. "We need to discuss what you're doing to your sister," she said without preamble, settling into my kitchen chair like she owned it, her purse placed firmly on the table between us. I made tea without asking if she wanted any, an old habit from years of Sunday visits. Jessica made my son watch a birthday party through a window like he was a stray dog begging for scraps. "I'm not discussing anything that suggests I should reconsider. Family doesn't destroy family over a party," she said firmly, using the tone that had intimidated me as a child but had lost its power somewhere around my 25th birthday. "Family doesn't treat a 7-year-old like he's not worthy of basic kindness. Family doesn't make a child stand outside in the cold and watch other children eat cake and open presents. You're being dramatic. Children are resilient. I set the tea in front of her harder than necessary. You were there, Grandma. You watched it happen and said nothing. She had the grace to look away. I thought Jessica would handle it. She did handle it. She chose cruelty. And now you're choosing revenge. No, I'm choosing consequences. There's a difference. She sipped her tea in silence for a moment. Then she tried a different approach. Jessica's mortgage payment is due in 3 weeks. If she can't pay, she'll lose the house. She has a law degree and a husband with a good job. She'll figure it out. The trust money was part of their budget planning. Then they should have planned better, or treated my son with basic human decency. Grandma left 20 minutes later, disappointed but not surprised. She'd known me long enough to recognize when I wouldn't budge. Thursday brought the email I'd been expecting. From Mark, formal and legal sounding. This is to notify you that we are seeking legal counsel regarding your abuse of trustee authority. Your personal vendetta is affecting multiple family members and their children. This is unacceptable and likely actionable. I forwarded it to the estate attorney with a simple note, FYI. He replied within an hour, let them waste their money. The documents are bulletproof. Friday evening, I was making dinner when my son came into the kitchen. Mommy, is Aunt Jessica mad at me? I turned off the stove and knelt down to his level. Why would you think that? Tyler said his mom is really upset and it's because of me. I felt a fresh wave of anger at Jessica for letting this reach the kids. Aunt Jessica made a bad choice. She hurt your feelings and now she's upset because there are consequences. But none of this is your fault. You did nothing wrong. Are we still family? You and Tyler are definitely still cousins. You and I are definitely still family. But Aunt Jessica needs to learn something important before we spend time together again. He thought about this seriously. Is she in timeout? Something like that. He nodded, satisfied with this explanation, and went back to his drawings. 2 weeks later, Jessica showed up at my door again. No pacing this time. She looked exhausted. I need to talk to you. Really talk. I let her in. We sat in the living room. She didn't start with demands this time. My mortgage payment bounced. The school called about tuition. Mark's car got repossessed because his lease payment didn't go through. She rubbed her face. I get it. I understand what you're doing. Do you? You're showing us what it feels like to be excluded. To have things taken away for no good reason. For a very good reason. You were needlessly cruel to a child. She was quiet for a long moment. I was angry at you. I've been angry for years. About what? About Mom and Dad making you trustee. About you being the one with control. About you always being the responsible one, the one they trusted. She looked up, eyes red. And I took it out on your son. I made him the outsider because I felt like the outsider in your shadow my whole life. I didn't respond immediately. This was more honesty than Jessica had offered in years. That's not his fault, I said finally. I know that now. I ruined a 7-year-old's birthday because I was jealous of his mother. She wiped her eyes. I'm sorry. Genuinely, deeply sorry. Not because you cut off the money. Because I hurt him. He cried himself to sleep that night. I know. Tyler told me how excited he was about the party. How he kept asking when his cousin was coming inside. Her voice broke. I'm ashamed. We sat in silence. What do you want me to say? I asked. Nothing. I just wanted you to know I finally understand. And I'm sorry. She left quietly. I restored her payments 3 days later. Not because she apologized, but because her children didn't deserve to suffer. But I included a memo with the reinstatement. Future distributions contingent on maintaining appropriate family relationships with all family members. Mark got his payments back a week after that with the same conditions. My son never went back to Jessica's house. But when we had family gatherings at neutral locations, she made sure he was welcomed, included, and treated exactly like every other child there. It took 6 months before she asked if we could have a real conversation about rebuilding trust. We're still working on that. But my son never again came home trembling with tears of exclusion. And that was the only outcome that ever mattered.